I've used a lot of meal services, but Hungry Root truly stands out because it's built around the way real families live and eat. They don't just send meal kits. They personalize your grocery cart and meal plan based on your preferences and dietary goals. All I had to do was take a short quiz, and right away, their smart cart technology started building a cart that fit how we eat. Now, each week feels easier, like someone else is doing the thinking for me. I've been focused on cleaner eating lately, and I love that Hungry Root keeps out over 200 additives, including things like high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners. Their meats are hormone and antibiotic free, and the produce options include organic and non GMO picks. They also stock brands I already trust, like Oatly, Vital Farms, and Harmless Harvest. One of our favorite meals has been the teriyaki salmon with green beans, light, flavorful, and done in 12 minutes flat. Plus, I've noticed we waste less food, spend less time shopping, and even save money by skipping those impulse grocery buys. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg and use code Dr. Meg. That's hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg. Code Dr. Meg to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg. Code Dr. Meg.
Welcome to another episode of Parenting Great Kids. I'm your host, Dr. Meg Meeker, and today we have an inspiring guest joining us. She's a firm believer in the resilience of the human spirit, an author and a true advocate for the journey of motherhood. Rachel Marie Martin is not just the writer behind the heartfelt site Finding Joy. She's also the author of The Brave Art of Motherhood and a founding partner in Audience Industries, a company dedicated to training and empowering entrepreneurs in their ventures. And today we're going to talk about her latest work, Mom Enough. This book is a beacon of encouragement for moms everywhere, and it's drawn from Rachel's personal journey through heartache, self-doubt, and the myriad challenges that come with motherhood. And with over 40 letters of encouragement, she reaches out from one mom to another, affirming that every mom is mom enough.
I've actually wondered, like 1,000 years ago, did moms feel guilty? I don't know if they did the way we do. I think we feel guilty if we're privileged to, like, we live in a society where we have that time. We have to acknowledge that part of it, that we have that space. And sometimes that guilt comes in because we have time to self-reflect. I know that when I was in Haiti, I wish I'd had more of a conversation with the moms there. Like, do you feel guilty about this? Like, it probably doesn't matter all the things that we put pressure on ourselves on. And that's where I think it's important looking at our lives, like recognizing that we have these opportunities that some people don't have and being aware of them. And it helps temper my feeling of like, you know what, maybe I don't need to get stressed out about this.
Welcome to Parenting Great Kids. Here's your host, Dr. Meg Meeker.
Rachel, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat about motherhood and more.
We hear a lot about motherhood and, of course, and we talk about helps. But I think that it's one of the most important reasons we talk about motherhood and how important it is because a lot of mothers out there who don't have jobs outside the home, or often, I say jobs that don't pay any money because they work very, very hard, is that they just feel sort of downtrodden and they feel that their work is not important. And the opposite is absolutely true. So let's talk about the power of encouragement that you write about. Your book is over 40 letters and you offer encouragement to moms. Why is encouragement so much? I mean, isn't just enough to have our friends and our family encourage us, but why do we need constant encouragement?
Well, you know what's interesting about that is, so I've been writing online since pretty much online was an online thing. And what's interesting is the world seems like we're more connected, right? But moms would email me and they feel alone. And encouragement to me is, it's really about seeing the stuff that we do behind the scenes. And we oftentimes, moms will think, well, it doesn't even really matter. It's just what a mom does. They attach that little 4-letter word there about just. And the encouragement part is there are some days of motherhood. I can think back to many of my own where you are just thinking, it's the same thing. Does this really matter? Does anybody even care that I'm doing this? And for me, when I felt that way, I thought there's got to be another mom that feels this way. And then over the last 10 years, it's come in and developed into millions of moms that have said, you know what, me too. I feel this way. And the encouragement part, it's really about not being alone. And I think that's the hardest part of motherhood is sometimes we feel alone in the journey, even though it's a really digital motherhood journey right now compared to when my oldest was young. That was in the late 90s. There wasn't this kind of constant barrage of information. And I just wanted to be this voice that cut through it all and said, you know what, you're doing a great job.
One of the things we struggle with as mothers and as grandmothers, because I'm a grandmother now too, is that you spend so much time alone. You're told you're not alone because you're on a screen, you're on Instagram, and you're chatting with friends, but that doesn't satisfy. It's not a deep connection. You need to be touched. You need to be hugged. You need eye contact. You need someone to be able to read your facial expressions if your eyes are welling up with tears, and you can't do that over the internet. So I think you're absolutely right. I think that we women and men as well are born with a need to be face to face with people. And I wish that with our listeners, we were all sitting around a big, huge table and, holding hands or sharing coffee or cookies or whatever, just saying, you got it. It's okay. You talk a lot about discouragement in the book. And one of the chapters you have, which I love, is you are not failing. And it's in a section of your book called Discouraging Days and Breathe. Why do moms need to know they're not failing?
Let's just go back to the online world is we all know it's a highlight reel. Like we could talk about it and share about it. And we know that it's the good stuff. And I'm always saying, share the good stuff. But there's not a lot of, we all have the bad days too. We have those days where it's the littlest thing that pushes us to the edge. And that feeling of failure, I've dealt with it on my own motherhood journey. Like I'm just failing. I can't do this. And I think part of it is when there's no like manual. There's no, okay, this is how you do it. This is how you figure it out. It's just a lot of motherhood is being a rookie the first time at everything. And we don't have that little bit of grace that we need to give ourselves. I've learned it the longer I've gone through my motherhood journey. But I also know that those days when I feel like it doesn't really matter, those are the days where it's discouraging. And as a writer, I always wanted to meet the person. When you said like talking at the table, I always think if I'm sitting across from the table from somebody, what would I say to my friend? And that's how I would write, because I know that there's this great value of somebody saying, listen, I hear you. I'm with you. In that empathy part. And then I never wanted to leave somebody thinking, well, let's just stay kind of mired in this hard part. I wanted to leave moms with that moment where they're like, you know what, this does matter and I can do this. And that's powerful.
You're absolutely right, because I think back to when my kids are young, there were some days I just wanted to run out of the house and go away. And I remember my kids fighting, and it really drove me crazy because I grew up in a home where there was a lot of yelling, and it pushed all of my buttons, and it made me feel like, what is wrong with me? I can't get these kids to stop fighting. If I were just a better mother, they would be more peaceful. They would talk to each other more kindly. And now they're adults and they say, yeah, Mom, we did fight a lot. I'm really sorry we fought so much. But I'm like, well, look at all the gray hairs. But, I think that so many times as mothers, we feel that we're the only one who's failing our kids. We are discouraged. We are doing it wrong. I personally got off Facebook from my personal Facebook because, and I have a pretty decent self-esteem. It was too discouraging. I saw my friends with their kids and their grandkids who are all dressed up and they're on the beach in Florida, they're beach in Hawaii. And I'm sitting here in like a pile of snow going, what? you know, and and I think that we get so discouraged and feeling like we are alone in messing up. Talk to us about a time when you felt you were alone in messing up.
Well, I can think of many times. I think going back to even that thought is when you said I wanted to run away, that kind of feeling, then there's that layer of guilt on that. Oh my goodness, I shouldn't feel
Yeah.
guilty about this. I'm a bad mom.
I'm a bad mom because my kids are fighting, and now I'm a horrible mom because I hate my kids because I want to leave.
Right. And I want to run away. I always, I tell moms, the eat, pray, love, where she escapes to Italy like that. We don't have to do that. But, I can think of many bad days or those days where, you get the call or the email from the school and it's really easy, at least for me, to take it on like I'm not doing a good enough job. If I was a better mom, I wouldn't get this. And it could be even late homework, something simple. But then I would take it on as like identity, forgetting the fact that I am not raising little robots. They are humans with their own emotions and their own decisions and their own thought processes. And it's my job to walk beside them. And yeah, there's going to be days where I'll tell them, I'm like, what in the world were you thinking? But they know I
They
still
weren't.
love them.
That's the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no,
Mhm.
no. I'm like, you guys, come on, get it together. But I've just learned like they need me to show up no matter what. They need me to be that constant. And even in those most discouraging days, like if I think back to a time where I was kind of back and forth with a teenager in the morning, and that teenager who was really irritated at me needed me to pick him up from school because he wasn't feeling good. And he was great at that moment. The smile he saw me when he was sitting in the nurse's office and I was in the school office was priceless, because at the bottom of it, they push back because they know that I'm going to love them no matter what. And this is their safe space. That's what I remind moms all the time is that's just tremendous amount of pressure for them too. Navigating a world where, I didn't have it, where everything was online, where they have the same pressure that you and I do as mothers. So I just try to just remind them, like, there's this pressure valve. We're respectful. Do you need just time? Like, it's okay. Just
Yep.
take a little bit of time.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Why do we feel so guilty all the time, moms?
I I've wondered about that a lot. I've actually wondered, like 1,000 years ago, did moms feel guilty? And I would tell myself, I actually wonder, like, I don't know if they did the way we do. I think we feel guilty if we're privileged to, like, we live in a society where we have that time. We have to acknowledge that part of it, that we have that space, because there are a lot of moms that don't have that space. And sometimes that guilt comes in because we have time to self-reflect. I know that when I was in Haiti, I wish I'd had more of a conversation with the moms there. Like, do you feel guilty about this? Like, it probably doesn't matter all the things that we put pressure on ourselves on. And that's where I think it's important looking at our lives, like recognizing that we have these opportunities that some people don't have, and being aware of them. And it helps temper my feeling of, like, you know what, maybe I don't need to get stressed out about this. Maybe I don't need to feel guilty about this, because this is something that because of where I live and what I get to do right now, but that not a lot of people have. And it's just, I want to have that awareness, because in the end, the matching Christmas stuff or all the stuff that we put pressure on ourselves, going to Disney World, all that, it really doesn't matter. What really matters is showing up.
I think sometimes for me as a pediatrician, I've listened to thousands of kids over the year, and I have the wonderful benefit of having heard what kids say about their moms. And what they want from us is so simple. They don't care about the stuff they care about. They want their mom to pay attention. They want their mom off their phone. They want their mom to be available and pick them up at school when they're feeling horrible. They want their mom to have their back when somebody's mean at them at school. And I think a lot of times I feel that mothers are very competitive and not overtly. We don't necessarily know it. But I think there's a sense where we look at our friends and we want our kids to have the opportunities our friends' kids do, which usually our friends' kids are doing different things than our kids are doing because there's so many opportunities. And I wonder if there's a sense we feel like we need to kind of keep up with our friends because we don't want our child to fall behind. Can you talk about how important it is not to get stuck in the trap where we're feeling that our kids and our parenting needs to measure up to our friends' kids and their parenting?
Yeah, I would love to. As a mom of many kids, I can tell you they all learn to read, which you probably know just as well. They learn to read. They at different ages, they learn to ride a bike at different ages. There's no set system, and yet, I really believe that abundance of information that we have right now makes us feel like there's a set like a rhythm that we have to do or a set thing, but you'll make a choice, and the second you make that choice there's another choice that will pop up. I always tell moms too, like, if you, let's just think about a pacifier. You can go into Target and there's an entire row of pacifiers that you should choose from. Right. And then you choose one, and then your friend says, we don't use pacifiers. So then there's all of a sudden this competition. You're like, well, maybe we take it on like, well, if she doesn't, is there something wrong with me? And I just want to say, every one of us, like, I know every one of my children had a different path. And to look at our friends and to look at other people as, hey, that's a cool option, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have to do it. And it's almost like there's this pause in between. And instead of reacting to, shoot, I should do that, we should play soccer, we should go do all of that, it's stepping back, looking at your family, and really looking at each child. I have kids that love to be busy, and I have kids that they love to be in their room and reading a book or coding on the computer. And if I try to put them all and do the same thing, it's misery. And so it's really just adapting and doing what's right for your family.
I love that because I think that when we respond to what our friends tell us, no, my doctor said you should never have a passy because then they're not going to talk well or something like this. And there are plenty of pediatricians who'll say silly things like that. What we do then is we feel, gee whiz, maybe I shouldn't use a passy or whatever. And eventually that anxiety spills onto our kids because as they grow, if we're constantly questioning, should I feed you this? Should I not feed you this? Oh my gosh, I feel so guilty because we went to McDonald's on the way home because I'm exhausted. It's 8 o'clock at night. Our guilt eventually spills onto our kids. And I just want to encourage mothers, 85-90% of the stuff you feel guilty about that you feel you should measure up to your friends is a bunch of nonsense. Personally, I like passies. Personally, I don't worry about when kids give up a bottle, as long as they don't sleep with them in their beds. Follow your instincts as a mom. Your kid best. And if you feel that your kid doesn't want to play soccer, doesn't want this, or wants to stay home and read, let them be who they are. But in order for us to let them be who they are, we have to be comfortable in our skin as moms and say, yeah, I don't mind telling my friends that you don't do any extracurricular activities because you like to read. Oh, well, that's who you are. Good for you.
I have to take a quick break, but before I go, I want to invite you to visit drmegmeeker.com, where you can find a plethora of resources for your parenting journey. Explore our courses, join our free coaching webinar, and take our parent personality quiz. We'll be right back. Some days, parenting feels like chasing moments that never quite land. You ask a question, they shrug. You try again, they look at their screen. And you wonder, why is this so hard? That's why I love FamGabs. It's a 70-card deck created by a child therapist who spent 16 years working directly with families, helping parents and kids break through the awkward one-word answers and really connect. The questions are open-ended, thoughtfully chosen, and designed to get your child talking and keep the conversation going. There are even bonus cards just for parents to help you build your confidence in your connection toolbox. If you've ever wished for a better way to understand your child or just to have more meaningful conversations as a family, FamGabs is such a gift. Search FamGabs on Amazon and use promo code DrMegPod during checkout to get 10% off your order. That's FamGabs on Amazon. Use promo code DrMegPod and get 10% off your order. I've had so many parents say, Dr. Meg, my child is bright, but they're struggling in school and I don't know what to do. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. And that's why I'm excited to share K-12 powered schools with you. K-12 offers tuition-free, accredited online public education for grades K through 12. These programs let kids learn at their own pace with built-in flexibility that supports different learning styles and family needs. And unlike homeschooling, K-12 provides certified teachers who guide your child's education online. The lessons are engaging, the technology is hands-on, and your child gets real opportunities to connect with clubs, extracurriculars, and even in-person events. As a mom, a grandmother, and a pediatrician, I know how powerful it is when education meets your child's needs instead of the other way around. So if you're looking for something different, something better, go to k12.com/drmeg and find a tuition-free K-12 powered school near you. That's k12.com/drmeg, all caps.
You have a great line in one of your chapters. I think it's on mom guilt. Okay. Sitting in mistakes means missing out on today. Talk about what you mean by sitting in mistakes.
Well, I tend to be, or I used to be, kind of that wallower. Like, you have that conversation with somebody and it didn't go right. And then when you go home, you think, oh, I should have responded this way or that way, or I should have done that. And when we all make mistakes. I've made enough of my own mistakes, but if I sat and thought about it and dwelled and thought if I had only done this and instead of living in the now, I'm living in the past of what was. And then I'm missing out on this opportunity, the opportunity to learn from the mistake. Yeah, there's stuff that I've learned, not going to do that again, or I'm going to do that. But if I'm sitting in the past and dwelling on it, and as someone that's dealt with my own anxiety, it can be easy to start going in that thinking process. But I've learned then I'm missing out on the really, really simple joys of today. My oldest kids, they have the same stories. They'll write Mother's Day cards and it will say, I loved playing cards with you at the lake. I loved it being in the garden. It was these really simple things. It was never the big things. And none of them ever wrote, I'm really sad because we never went to Disney World.
Oh, never. Or the size of the house you had, or what kind of
Right.
bedspread. It's very interesting. I've seen a phenomenon where, as parents get older and they have more money and they buy a bigger home, very often kids don't like that. Kids don't like to sleep, younger kids, I'd say under 12, don't like to sleep in a bedroom far away from their parents. And so parents will be all excited because they got this big new home, and kids are like, I just don't really like that. I kind of like sharing a room with my brother. And so it's very interesting. The things that we feel that we're doing well for our kids, i.e. getting a nicer home or pool in the backyard, really don't matter to them. I love in one of your chapters, it's called Mom, Mom, Mom. Mom, I have a question. Mom, can I have a snack? Mom, can you help me? Mom, I need you. Mom, Mom, Mom. And I remember saying to my kids at times, Mom is not a swear word. Talk to us about how we deal with the constant pressure of feeling needed all the time.
So it's interesting because my youngest now is 14. So when I think back to that letter that I wrote, the mom, 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 I just picture the Grinch, the noise part. And it's not that noisy in my house anymore. And I wish I could, you do the best you can. But for me in that time, it was almost accepting that this is a noisy season. versus trying to change it or accepting that when you have toddlers, you're really just chasing them, keeping them alive. Like, don't touch the stove, don't go in the street, don't do all of that. It's like the job. And it's almost being willing to say, this is what it is now. And while it was noisy then, now my house is like, sometimes I don't see the kids unless the Wi-Fi goes out. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, they emerge. Like, hello. We have a sign in our kitchen that says, if you feed them, they will come. So
That's right.
we know that. And so it's being willing to embrace this season that you're in and not comparing seasons. I will tell that to moms over and over again, is they'll have little kids. And I'm like, you just can't compare to me right now when I have a 14-year-old. Like, they pretty much know they don't have little toys. We don't have stuff all over the house. And I can remember when they were young, just wanting everything neat and tidy and wanting it like that. But again, these little 3, 4, 5-year-olds, they did not have the same goal. And I just had to be willing to be like, okay, this is the season, and giving myself grace for that. And then knowing the things that mattered. I knew that I loved it if the kitchen sink was clean or the kitchen counter was clean. And I would I would create these little sacred spaces so that I would have that moment of breath it was a very chaotic world for me when they were young.
How many kids do you have?
I have 7.
7. Mm-hmm. So what's the oldest to the youngest? What's the age range?
So I have, my oldest is 27, my youngest is 14, and then I've gotten remarried and I have 4 bonus ones too. So right now in the house, we have 5 or 6 that are living with us, and it's busy. It's, and moms will compare too, like, oh, I could never handle that. And I tell people, you do the best that you know with. When I had 2, it was just as overwhelming as when I had many. And it's not like when I had many, like, well, I'm just not going to take care of you today. Like, you deal with what's on what you have, and you make do.
You absolutely do. And I think that, sometimes I would feel like, well, I'm getting numb. We have 4, they're all grown, and now we have a bunch of grandkids that are around us. Talk to us about how we as girlfriends and how we as mothers of our adult kids raising children, what are things that we do that make life harder, and what can we do to make life easier? Because I find myself I have to be very careful about not saying something that I think is helpful that really is hurtful. Like, you know what? I really don't think you should be feeding her Cheetos right now. Cheetos are really bad food for her. My daughter knows that. And so talk to us about ways that we grandmothers and we women friends can affirm our friends as mothers and our daughters as mothers. And what are the mistakes we make in making them feel worse than they may already do? Because a lot of times we do it, we don't realize we're doing it.
Yeah, I really believe it's that level of a little bit of awareness, that stepping back, that I try to remember what it was like. My sister has 3 young kids, and I just know that for her, she just needs that friend. She just needs somebody maybe just to do the dishes or to sit with her and drink coffee, or to say to her, you're a great mom. I had just visited my family in Minnesota, and when I came back, that was the text, like, you're a great mom. I just wanted her to hear it, because especially when you have young kids, you don't hear it. I love you, Mom, I love you. But, our kids, you just sometimes wonder, like, does it really matter? Like, what am I doing? So as far as what we can do, I always, to me, the best things that have happened are when my friends have just shown up and helped out. That's huge for me. Or without the judgment. There's kind of like, I remember going through a divorce, when I was going through my divorce, and my best friend Maria just showed up at my door with cleaning supplies in hand and walked in. She knew that if she had texted me and said, hey, can I help clean? I would have said, no, I'm fine. But she knew, she had the courage, I would say it's courage and bravery, to put herself on the line, to come in and just do it. And even though I was like, no, it was such a huge gift. And that's what I try to be like, especially with my friends that have younger kids. I have a really good friend here that's got 3 kids under 6. And we would just meet on Tuesdays and just sit and drink coffee at her house while the kids played. No agenda, no nothing. It was just being there. Another human being showing up, saying, you know what, you're doing a great job. Listening. That's the other thing. I think so many moms don't feel heard, and just someone that they can talk to. That's huge.
And I think that with all the advice out there, from you and from me and from all these other people that, and you want to give helpful advice. But I think sometimes we fall into being advice givers, that we feel we need to go in and help our friend change this or change that so that she can be happier. Maybe if you just exercise more, you know, we may be saying it to help, but she's hearing, what do you think? I'm fat. I need to lose 10 pounds. What people hear and what we say are often very, very different things. So I think you're absolutely right. I love that. Your friend came in, she didn't say anything. She didn't say, gee whiz, why are you divorcing this guy? Why she just cleaned your house. And I think sometimes you're absolutely right. We just need to be for our friends. And maybe we should just not talk as much to people. We should just, like you said, keep our mouth quiet, listen, and don't offer advice and don't judge. And that's hard because we hear so much advice. You have a great letter on being fearless. And I love this because we have to learn to be fearless in order to fight for ourselves and our sanity. And one of the things, let's see, you have, they see where they stood up, not where they fall. They focus on the good. They know their kids will make mistakes. Hooray. They're real. They learn, they do versus just talk. Why is being fearless so important as a mom?
Well, there's that actually made me a little teary thinking about it, because I think most moms have a level of fearlessness in them and they forget to see it, or they don't see it, or they don't realize how powerful they are until somebody's like, "Whoa, what were you doing? That is amazing." And fear, there's a lot of stuff that we can do that's scary out there. There's a lot of decisions we have to do as a mom it's really hard. I know that my youngest guy has celiac disease, and when he was diagnosed, he was 15 months old, and I had to be fearless. I had to really, really fight for him because he was really young with it. It wasn't as diagnosed back then, and I just did because it was within me to do it. And sometimes moms will say, "Well, I don't know if I have it," and I'll remind them. Well, do you remember when you did that? Like, we all instinctively have that mama bear part of being fearless. And the other thing is, my son Caleb reminded me one day, he said, Mom, you have the quote that kind of paraphrased by Eleanor Roosevelt, do one thing every day that scares you, in the house. But he says, you also have one that says, do one thing every day that makes you happy. And I thought, that's interesting. And I've realized that oftentimes, at least in my own life, what's on the other side of what scared me or makes me nervous is something that brings me a tremendous amount of joy or happiness. It's just getting out of my own head and doing it.
You're absolutely right, because it really feels like an oxymoron that fear and joy should sort of be bedfellows, that it's working through the fear that you really get the joy. And I love that you say this, because so many mothers know what to do with their kids. They know something's wrong with their kids. And they come in or to a doctor's office, for instance, and go, well, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? If you think something's wrong with your child, you stay in that room until the doctor tells you he or she's going to figure out what it is. Because so many times mothers back down. There's a lot of self-doubt. Maybe I'm not making the right decision. Maybe I shouldn't send my kid to that school. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Stand up for what you believe in, because your instincts are usually right. So act on them and be stronger, because I really do want to champion mothers and sort of say, you really have got this, and it's simpler than you think, but it's just really, really hard. And doing what you know you should do for and with your kid is hard. So you got to have the guts to do it. We only have a few minutes left, but I know that a lot of mothers struggle with fear because of what's out there. We live in a very violent world. We live in a world where girls are sexualized, where there's pornography and kids are on the internet and online and social media. And there are just a lot of things that are very frightening for parents. So, talk to mothers about how or if they can navigate this and have kids come out on the other side who are really good, great kids.
I would say the number one thing is having a conversation. My kids and I always have a dialogue about what's happening, about school safety, about all of that violence, because it's a lot for them. It's a lot of dealing with and understanding. And I think that today's world, we are aware of the violence and in a very, just like we're aware of everything that's good because of social media, we're also extremely aware of everything that's terrible at the same time. And I want to be aware, but I also don't want to be living in fear. So I'm very selective. I will get the news that I need and I will learn what I need to learn, but I will not allow myself to sit there, because if you sit in fear or you sit in all of it, then it just perpetuates onto the kids. They're nervous, they're afraid, they don't know what to do. And so we have a lot of dialogue. We have a lot of conversations about what's going on in the world or what's going on at school and safety and just even with raising my daughters, what it's like to be a confident woman and do all of that. And I really believe the more you open the dialogue and talk about stuff and talk with them, the better it can be. It's when it's hush, hush, we don't talk about that stuff, where then it creates the fear. It creates more of a fear or a curiosity to figure out what is so bad that no one's talking to me about. And I think that curiosity can lead them down into a rabbit trail. So, my kids all know this growing up with the phone. Like if I say spot check, they just hand it over. Like if they were to stall, I'd be like, I don't think so. What is going on? Like there shouldn't be a need, but it's just developing that kind of that mutual respect as they're growing older. Like my job isn't to keep them under my roof forever. It's to gradually release the hand and let them fly. And that means like having the hard conversations and talking about internet safety and talking about what's going on in the world. And, just being willing to listen, really listen to them, just like we want to be heard. I think that our kids, going to school, they're told, do this, do that, do this, do that. And they're just told stuff and they just want somebody to listen to their perspective. And to me, sometimes that's the greatest time of the day. I have an 18-year-old that will always come out about 9:30 and he'll just start talking. And if we're watching TV, pause and we'll just sit and then wait. And we're not like, whatever it is. And sometimes it's random things. And then after about 15 minutes, he will stand up and then just walk back to his room. And I cherish that time because it's a time where he feels comfortable, probably getting a snack, but wanted to chat.
I love it because, my kids' senior year in high school was my favorite year with them. People say, oh, teenagers. I said, stop it. The teens are great because you can have great conversations. And they would come home for lunch or they'd come home before practice and I'd be doing something in the kitchen and they just sit down and they just start talking. If you want your kids to talk to you, listen. Kids who feel that you never listen will never talk to you. And I also tell parents, no topic is off limits. So you have to be ready to handle the hard stuff and the opinions you don't want to hear and, behaviors you don't want to hear about. You have to listen and to let kids know it doesn't matter what they say or how they feel. At home, it's safe. You figure it out together. What I'm hearing from you is that while you weren't your kid's friend growing up, you were their ally. And I think kids need to know mom and dad have my back and they will hear what I have to say. So I applaud you for that. I'm just hearing that in our conversation. I hope other moms out there hear that because that's so critical in getting your kids to a healthy adulthood.
Yeah, thank you. I would say I really am their advocate, their ally. I will sit in a too tiny chair in a school classroom and talk to the teacher and be their advocate because that's what they need us for sometimes. They need our when they come to us for us to be like, all right, let me hear, let me understand, and then to help them navigate that journey to move forward. And I know even my older kids now, the 27, 25, and 22-year-old, I know it's the same thing. Sometimes though, they'll call just to chat, but there's other times where they're like, can I just talk? And I'll just listen.
This is something that I really struggle with, and maybe other mothers do too. You feel panicky, like I've got this conversation. This kid is talking to me. I better tell him something. It needs to be a life changing moment. I need to teach him something. You don't. You've got plenty of years. Plus, what you want to say in that lesson, your kid already knows about. My son will say, "Mom, you don't need to repeat yourself." And I think, "I do. Yeah, I do, because you didn't hear me the first 5 times." And particularly with boys, you don't need to go over and over it. They get it. Well, this has just been delightful. My guest has been Rachel Marie Martin, and her book is fabulous. It's called Mom Enough. And she has a wonderful site called findingjoy.net. Thank you so much for coming on. I've learned a lot, and this has been really fun. How can people find out more about what you do? And if a mom out there is struggling with a 2-year-old or a 20-year-old, how can they find you, and what do you have to offer them?
So most people find me on Facebook, actually. I have a Facebook page. It's Finding Joy blog. If you type that in, you'll find me and you'll see my site and my work there. Also, findingjoy.net is the other spot. And I have been writing online for 12, almost 13 years now. So I've really done the gamut from when they're babies to letting go.
And it's hard. But I love it because it's grueling, but like you said, on the other side is so much joy. And I often tell parents, the payoff, well, is when you have grandkids. But hopefully there's a little bit of a payoff before that, because what I experienced is, you go through this and then your kids hit their mid to late 20s, and all of a sudden they're starting to understand that you really had their back and maybe you made some good choices for them. And if they turn around and say thank you for one thing or another, that's very, very rich. And we can all get to that place. Rachel, thank you so much for the work that you do. Keep it up. And I know it's hard. And if there's any mom out there, which is probably every single one listening, who needs some encouragement, please get a hold of Rachel's book, Mom Enough, and check out her Facebook page. Thanks, Rachel. Well, we've had such a great chat today with Rachel. She really hit the nail on the head with some key mom points that stuck with me. One thing she mentioned, which I always stress with my patients, especially new moms, is not getting too hung up on past mistakes and missed opportunities. It's a biggie. She also talked about the importance of being present in the moment and finding joy in the little things, like playing cards with your kids or soaking up some outdoor time. Something that's been a game changer for me in both my practice and when hanging out with my grandkids is practicing active listening. When your child's chatting away, tune in. Look them in the eye, nod, and ask questions. It shows that you care about what they're saying and makes the moment even more special. And before I sign off, do you or a dad need some one-on-one coaching? If so, I've got a few spots open for personalized one-on-one and group coaching. The coaching is live with me. So check out all the details on my website, meekerparenting.com, or just click on the show notes. Until next time, parents, always remember, great kids are raised, not born.